It is Peter Lucas, and this is the Niner Fanatic Podcast. You're here with me, and I have today with me Kevin McKelligan. You know him all from the Twitter Spaces. I'm sure all the guys in Twitter Spaces, especially today, we had a really good one today. That they all recognize Kevin. But Kevin, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on your socials?
So again, like Peter said, my name is Kevin. On Twitter, you can find me at SF99er49. That's kind of my primary sports talking platform. I don't do really anything on Facebook or Instagram, so mostly Twitter at SF99er49.
Yeah, and I'm excited to have him here today because we were on a thing with Rohan. We were on a roundtable with Rohan like a couple weeks ago, and I had a great time on that broadcast. And so I just wanted to bring on Kevin because he has a lot of really good takes, and he's all like I said, we're always in spaces together, and we have a lot of alternative views. We don't always agree on everything, but that makes the best shows. So of course I had to bring him on and get his views on a lot of the things that are going on in the Dog Days of OTAs, which is the title of this show today. How do you feel about the Dog Days of OTAs and how slow is it of a news cycle for you, Kevin?
I mean, yeah, it's tough coming from free agency. Then we have the draft, and then typically we have rookie minicamp. We didn't have any top picks this year. We had some exciting players that we did pick up. So rookie minicamp was kind of a lull because we didn't really get a whole lot of news coming out of that because we didn't have like a Trey Lance that we drafted third overall. But yeah, it's been an interesting offseason so far. As you said, like it's been kind of a lull. But OTAs are really, really important for the players to kind of get back into, talking to each other, kind of breaking stuff down and what they're going to be doing towards, week one. One of the other things that I think is kind of interesting is that, we do have a lot of new players, a lot of new starters that are going to be playing on this team. So it's going to be interesting to see once kind of everybody gets together, how they're going to gel as a unit going forward. But yeah, right now it is kind of an interesting time that you don't have a whole lot. And then training camp's coming up in about 2 weeks. So that's going to be when, we're really going to be in it and figuring out, what this team is going to look like going forward.
Yeah, for sure. And if there is a slow time for the NFL, I feel like this OTA period is probably the slowest time of the year for the
Absolutely.
NFL, just because the draft is done, like rookie minicamp is done. We're literally, and we don't get a lot of media access to OTAs, so there's no real news coming out about our team, and the
Right.
national media has resorted to just saying whatever they want to say to get clicks. But the first thing I want to start off with today is, so OTAs, what position group are you waiting for to hear more info about, and maybe what player specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one thing I wanted to mention before we move to this topic is that it's really interesting because the organization, I believe, can actually allow how many media days that you have, right? Because the 49ers don't love the media. They don't love, the questions that our beat reporters ask. There's been a little beef here in the last couple of weeks between some beat writers and players on the team. So I believe the 49ers have only allowed 1 or 2 days of media access through their entire OTAs, which is a little unusual. I feel like a lot of organizations allow more of that. So that's probably why we're not getting as much content as we want. We have a lot of great content creators like yourself that are taking the time and figuring out what topics that we can talk about because we don't have media access right now. So,
Yeah, for sure.
but going into some of the positions, obviously, I think quarterback, and we're all interested to see how Trey Lance looks out there on the field. I know a lot of people are interested about his throwing motion. I don't really care as much about that because in my opinion, when you play quarterback, it just matters how the ball gets there. And if it's accurate, that's
Exactly.
all that matters. So quarterback for sure. I think the wide receiver group is going to be very interesting. With Debo coming back, hopefully on an extension, that group is going to be very deep. And depending on, who plays more of the slot role, is it going to be Ray McLeod? Is it going to be Danny Gray? Is it going to be Juwan Jennings? That room is going to be deeper than I think we've had probably since the Harbaugh days. That's also a really interesting group. And then the offensive line, we don't know what Alex Mack is going to do. I feel like some of us have an opinion on what he's going to be doing, whether he's going to be retiring or he's going to be, playing one more season. So the offensive line looks kind of thin right now, to be honest, Peter. I don't know what you think about the offensive line. It looks kind of thin, but I was seeing things today that Aaron Banks has got his weight up and he's looking strong. So hopefully he can be, performing in camp and doing the things that they want him to do. Because I feel like if he plays well and we have Alex Mack coming back, I feel like the right side of the line might be kind of the weakness again this year. But again, we have young players that can come in and fill those roles as well. So those are the three positions on the offense. I got quarterback, offensive line, and wide receiver. A lot of new pieces, and Trey Lance is obviously going to have his first year starting. So what do you think about the offensive side of the ball before we go to the defense?
Yeah, for sure. So the way I'm looking at it is, and I did want to comment about what you said about the media access. You're absolutely right. This regime specifically has gotten tighter and tighter on media access. They just don't want anything to get out, and I really feel like they've almost taken the Niners don't leak to heart. Like they do not want a drop to come out, and I guess they think that the less everybody else knows, the less that they can prepare. Maybe I that's the only thing I can think of. But all we really need to worry about is that we know we're not going to hear anything from them. We know we're not going to get the whole story, but all it does for us is it leads us open to speculation. And now we're all trying to figure out, what are they doing? What's the reasoning why they haven't signed somebody to back up Alex Mack? Like
Exactly.
all they have is rookies. Like and we just look at this roster, and while this roster is loaded and it's depth personified, there's a couple of spots that still we feel like they should have probably addressed, and we don't know the plan because they won't talk to us. So, but to answer your question about what position group I'm waiting, you hit the nail on the head. For me, the offensive line is the number one position group for me that I want to see what the plan is, and it comes down to, just like you were talking about, Alex Mack. And what the reality about Alex Mack is that I don't think he's coming back. I think
You don't think he's coming back?
I don't think he's coming back. And I know a couple of the other beat writers said as much, that they don't think he's coming back either, because of the comment that Kyle Shanahan made during the presser during OTAs last week. And I just look at it as, at first, what he said, I thought that meant he was coming back. But then that seemed to everybody else thinks that he's not coming back now. So I'm going to go with the people that have been actually reporting in the locker room on that situation, and I really think that he's not coming back. But that opens up the question. Okay, so if Daniel, like now you got Brendel and Daniel Brunskill, I don't want to see Brunskill at center. I really don't. We've tried that before. It did not work out well. And Brendel is he looked really good against second and third stringers, but I tend to not want to see. I don't know. If they have confidence in him, then that's good enough for me for the time being until they prove me wrong. But for right now, I really hope that they either go outside of and go to with JC Treader, or get another vet, or find a way to trade for a veteran, something to that effect.
Yeah.
But I think that they have to solidify that center spot, because I think the guard spots, they've got so many bodies. I think they're going to solidify that position with bodies, the guard position. So it's I'm not really worried about it. They made Colton McKivitz a viable option at left tackle for a game, so I don't worry about this coaching staff
against the Rams in a pivotal game, to where if we lose, that's our season.
So I don't worry about. I think that this coaching staff knows what it's doing. At first, when we all heard that was going to happen, I think all of us were like, what is it's all. I thought that they were tanking at that point. They were just trying not to make the playoffs, because it just made no sense. A guy that hasn't touched the field all season, but they know better than us their system. They know better than us what is going to work, for them, and what they have planned that week. So I always need to just remember to turn it off, to turn my mind off sometimes, and just let them do what they get paid to do. But my player that I'm really watching out for and is, of course, Trey Lance is, that goes without saying.
Mhm.
But Danny Gray, I really think has a chance to be really good in this system. He is, and what you said earlier was a great comment about the fact that we haven't had this kind of wide receiver depth. Honestly, we've never had this kind of wide receiver
Yeah,
depth.
maybe
Depth.
so.
Like,
Maybe so.
because even when the Harbaugh was here, who do we have? We had Anquan Bolden and Crabtree. Who else? Who else do we have?
We had Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn was, I mean, he's not a pure wide receiver, but I mean, he did bring the speed element, you know?
And I'll give you that. But at the time, like Ted Ginn still wasn't even what he was in Carolina. Like, and he couldn't.
Sure.
He had stone hands. He could not catch
Sure.
balls, and don't even think about trying to get him to catch balls in traffic.
I agree.
Like,
I agree.
so I think that having Jawan Jennings, having Danny Gray, who's really talented, and then the other guys that they brought in, they just have so many pieces that could, with Ray McLeod and the other guys that they signed. I just think that they're in a prime position to just, this offense could explode depending on what happens with Trey Lance.
Yeah,
But
and just speaking on the offense, just real quick, I think Danny Gray is a great choice, because my thinking is, you know, a lot of the third downs kind of in the middle of the field from like the 30 to the 30 on both sides, they may use Danny Gray a little bit more because there's a lot of space to work with. They can utilize
exactly.
the speed. And then once they start getting to the red zone, they can utilize Jawan Jennings with his big body and his leaping, his catching ability. So while we may not see Jawan, you know, catch a lot of passes, I think his touchdown rate might go up because I think he's going to use more in red zone packages and stuff like that. But I
For
wouldn't
sure.
be surprised to see Danny Gray, you know, in between the 25, 30 yard lines to be that guy on second and third and long, to take the top off. And maybe if there's a breakdown in defensive coverage, I mean, you've got a touchdown or at least a 45, 50 yard gain, right? So
Yeah, absolutely.
I fully expect that. And then, you know, something that might be interesting, to use Ray McLeod out of the backfield, maybe on third and short. And I know JaMychal Hasty is pretty good at you know, running routes and catching and getting extra yards, but a guy who's played running back who can also split out wide and maybe run routes out of the backfield efficiently. I think that is something that we could utilize as well. So Ray McLeod is another guy because I think guys like Grant Cohn, they've been reporting that Ray McLeod has been doing really, really well so far in OTAs, and is making an impact in the offense. So I think short yardage, I think there's a lot of things we can do. We've got players that can go deep. Obviously, we've got Brandon Ayuk, who's a route tactician on the outside. So the combination of receivers and what they can actually do in the passing game is going to be unlike I think we've seen in a long time.
And the key thing that you just mentioned, as far as like Jawan Jennings, Danny Gray, Ray McLeod, because the 49ers traditionally don't really use a lot of three wide receiver sets.
Right.
But this is the thing. When you have all those diverse skill sets, that it gives them the option to really do whatever they want. And like they can give you any kind of look they want. And then they've got a couple of guys that they drafted and that are almost like Swiss Army knives, like not drafted, but they got the guy in undrafted free agency, like Jason Poe.
Yeah.
I fully expect them to try and use him somewhat offensively. I don't think that they got him just to be an offensive lineman. For like when I saw the videos, like about him running routes and actually catching passes.
That was crazy, man. 300 pounds, he can run that well. Amazing.
If they ask him to lose 20 pounds, I mean, think about the guy in Baltimore, Ricard, their fullback. He's humongous. He's humongous. So I just think about, and the only reason why you think of these things is because we have Shanahan, and like Shanahan, you just never know what kind of wrinkle Shanahan is going to bring up. But when you have guys that are so versatile, like it just starts making you think, and it makes your mind wander, and it just makes you think of all the possibilities that could happen. But yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think that this wide receiver group is so versatile and gives you so many options that, and if Trey is even what he was this past season, gives us what he gave in the Texans game.
Oh, it's a wrap.
Man, I don't know
100%.
like how you guard us. Like I just don't know what you do because you're gonna have to back those safeties off, and he's gonna run the ball down your throat.
Yeah.
So it's gonna
One
be.
thing,
I'm excited for the possibilities. Let's put it that way.
one thing you said about Poe, which I think would be really interesting, is that Trent Williams motion that we ran, it worked against the Green Bay Packers, then it
Yes.
didn't work against the Rams. So what if you have Trent Williams just staying at left tackle, but then you have a guy like Poe running a motion, and you run a play action rollout to where Poe's going to catch the ball in the flat? Like that is something that you could potentially see that would be really, really interesting. And so where people are maybe expecting that type of play where it's a run, but now because you have Trey Lance and one of his main staples of one of his strengths is the play action rollout game, right? So if you can utilize that to his strength, you have a guy like Poe who can run routes, who can catch the ball, maybe put a move in. Who's going to be tackling? Who's is an outside corner or maybe a smaller free safety going to come up and tackle a guy who's 275 running in the flat? You're not going to be able to take him down. So I think the problem with that is I don't know if they're going to try to stash him on the practice squad because this team is so deep. It's like, are we going to keep that guy as a tight end? Are we going to keep him as a center? Are we, so there's just a lot of different things of where they can actually place him on the depth chart. Because if you look at center, I mean, if Mack does come back, I mean, you have Alex Mack, you'll probably have Jake Brendell's the second. And then if they're going to carry three centers, it's probably going to be Donovan West. And if something happens to Mack, you're going to slide Brunskill from right guard. He's probably going to play right guard this year. You're going to slide him into center, right? Because you don't want to play Brendel. Then you open up something on the right side. So to me, it's like, where do you really put Poe on the depth chart? I mean, are you going to list him as the third tight end? Are you going to put him as a center? Because then now you're carrying four centers to where maybe on the defensive line you want to carry 11 guys because that's your strength. So they're going to have a really difficult time mapping out the 53-man roster to figure out where they're going to put him. So
absolutely.
There's so much depth and there's so much versatility. It's wild. I mean, you think about guys like Zakel, who could play any place on the line. The undrafted guys like Donovan West. You got Poe, Jalen Moore. I mean, there's so many offensive linemen. That's like, where are they going to put this guy?
I mean, Burford. We haven't even mentioned Burford, and I think he is a prime candidate to kind of take over because I don't think they're bringing back McGlinchey. So I think that he's going to eventually take over for McGlinchey. I think this is going to be a red shirt year for him. Burford?
Yeah, I think Burford. I think, and it's interesting. People thinking that we are the right path. I really, but
we're losing you, Kevin.
How about work?
Oh yeah, we're losing you. But while you're getting yourself together, I'm just going to talk a little bit more about the about the offensive line. What I'm looking at, Poe and Ron from that Niner Life podcast was talking about jet sweep. And the things that you were talking about, like putting him in motion. I mean, even putting him in motion to set up a sweep to the outside is because the guy is super athletic and he has moves. So I'm like we said, I'm just excited. I'm very excited to get it going and to see what these guys are capable of. While we're waiting for Kevin, we're gonna talk about so we have 100 days as of today. 100 days as of today until the season's from day one, and all the storylines with the team going on. What does everybody think will be the talking? Which one are we still going to be talking about going into week one? And I think about it, and I'm hoping that there you are.
Okay, can you hear me and see me okay now?
Oh yeah, it's okay. A lot better now.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, no worries. It happens. But I was just finished telling them about the because you were mentioning putting Poe in and like how we did Trent Williams and putting him in motion. I was thinking even putting him in motion to set up a screen to one side of the field
Sure.
and like doing that kind of stuff, especially with Danny Gray and the burners that we've got, like Debo. I mean, we're not even talking about Debo, and Debo like was like our whole offense last season.
Mhm.
And to be able to add these other guys in now that we have a person that can actually throw the ball, it's like we were just saying, it's just super exciting for all these possibilities.
Yeah.
But like I started talking about so we got 100 days from today, the season starts, week
Mhm.
1, of all the storylines with the team going on. Which one do we think we're still going to be talking about coming week 1?
I mean, it's Trey Lance. I mean,
Yeah.
I think people are going to keep coming out with stuff that is not true or is old news or fake news and just narratives that people are trying to push about Trey Lance. Everybody else has been able to play except him from that draft class, if I'm not mistaken, right? So,
Yeah, for
um,
sure.
so you know, it's really going to be interesting because one narrative that I'm seeing is that, I haven't heard anything about Justin Fields, right? But a lot of people think that the Bears are going to be the worst team in the NFL. So that's the thing is he's in a much better situation to where he's got to fail catastrophically and he's got to be throwing, like 2-3 picks a game. He's just inaccurate. He can't put the ball, on target for us to
Yeah.
even think about having a season like that because the team is so good, the roster is so good that in order for him to fail, it's got to be something that we've never seen before. Something like Peyton Manning-esque where he threw 30 picks his first season, just something crazy. And
Yeah.
to me, I've been very vocal about this, especially on Twitter Spaces, and especially because he's my quarterback. I mean, I root for the San Francisco 49ers. This kid is young. He's 21 years old. He's going to be 22, I believe, when the season starts. And what we've seen from him is some of the best quarterback play that we've seen in a while. And what we didn't know is that his injury was way worse than we thought.
Way
And
worse.
so when he's coming out and saying that he had to completely change his throwing motion. He had to learn to throw the football differently than he has ever since he was a kid, and to do it on at that level and to win us a game that if we didn't win, we wouldn't have made the postseason. To me, it's like he has the stuff and he has the intangibles to be good in this league. So I think the number one thing we're going to be hearing is, this arm fitness. He's not, it's his second year in the offense and he still doesn't know it. He doesn't know the playbook. And things are just going to keep coming out that aren't true. That we know
Yeah.
that people who follow the team, we know that it's factually wrong. And so to me, I get a little upset when people talk about Trey Lance that way because not playing football for 2 years essentially, and to play pretty well at the highest level of competition, um, injured, it is pretty impressive to me. So I mean,
Yeah.
I think Trey Lance is going to be obviously somebody that we hear about probably on a weekly basis, to where he's got to just go out and prove it on the field. And obviously he has a lack of inexperience, but I don't think that's necessarily his fault. I mean, we kind of talked about it previously, before the show started, that when COVID hit, he chose not to play because he didn't want to be around the team. He didn't want to spread COVID. He didn't want to get it for himself. He didn't want to give it to his family. And then, when he was about to be named the starter, he broke his finger and it was horrible. And Kyle Shanahan was ready to name him the starter, right, over
Yeah.
Jimmy Garoppolo. And we thought, okay, maybe it was just going to be a few weeks. It actually bothered him even into week 17 to where he couldn't
Yeah.
even straighten until the season was over. So to me, the fact that all of these things have been said against him and for him to continue to play well, I think he's going to be just fine. But again, going back, that's all we're going to be hearing about is Trey Lance. He's the quarterback, the most important position on the field, and he's the guy that hasn't been able to do it yet. He hasn't been able to get it. But again, so
Oh, you're
what are
going
we
into the
supposed
matrix again.
what are we supposed to, supposed to say about him when
Hey,
he
Kevin.
has a chance to get on? So how do you feel about this?
Hey, you're breaking up. But hey, like I think you were asking me like how do I feel about it, and I'll go into it. It's like as you're fixing your stream. But the I look at it as the storyline, of course, is going to be Trey Lance. For me, the storyline that's still most interesting, and we better not be talking about it by week 1, is of course Debo's contract. I'm just looking at it as it has to be done before training camp. But yeah, come week one, like, yeah, the only thing that we should be talking about is Trey Lance. I'm just hoping that we're not going to be talking about any of these other storylines other than Trey Lance and the anticipation of him doing exactly what you were just talking about, which is just showing us all the things that he can do with a fully healthy hand. And I can't wait to see him throw those bombs on day 1, because if you really look at the throws that he made and think about it, that he had a broken finger. I mean, most guys with a healthy finger probably couldn't make those throws. So I'm thoroughly excited to see what Trey Lance is going to do, and the storyline, of course, with all the Colin Cowherds. But have you noticed that all of a sudden, Pat McAfee, after having said that he didn't think Trey Lance was it, now all of a sudden, Pat McAfee, there's a couple of other guys that are saying that he might be it, and like all the stuff, they're not willing to die on the hill. Like, I think that these guys are finding out through their connections that Trey Lance is what the 49ers wanted, and they're trying to backtrack now before the season starts, because once the season starts, we're all going to crucify them. Like, all the 49er fans, especially 49er Twitter runs deep. We roll deep. Like, so you're not going to we're not going to let it die that you were calling out our quarterback before the season even started. Like, we're going to keep bringing it up and keep retweeting all the things that you said. Like, and I've got so many tweets that are bookmarked, like, that I can't even count. I can't even count them anymore. But I cannot wait. I cannot wait to be able to knock out bring out all those things that everybody was saying the whole time. And because I really feel that Trey Lance is going to be that guy. So I can hear you.
Is that better? Can you hear me? Can you see me?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you.
I don't know what's going on, man. My Wi-Fi. I've got strong Wi-Fi. I don't know what's going on. So sorry if it's cutting in and out, guys.
It's Wi-Fi. Like, it's everybody's Wi-Fi. It doesn't matter how strong your Wi-Fi is. Sometimes Wi-Fi, the technical stuff. But yeah, go on with what you were saying, because I gave my 2 cents on Trey Lance. Like, I think that Trey Lance is. I've been saying it for a long time now. I think he's that guy, and I can't wait.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's something interesting that you said that all of a sudden, some people are still saying that, there are things that are wrong with him. They're still underwhelmed. He's one play Trey. But I think you said something that's really important. Like, all of a sudden now people are changing their narrative of, oh, well, now I'm hearing inside the organization that they're exactly what they wanted, and he's getting the ball out on time, and he's accurate. And it's like people just say stuff because they want to be right before they actually see what, they have facts about what's going on, right? We know that, we believe in Trey Lance, right? As I would say 95% of the 49ers fan base believes in Trey Lance. And you're absolutely right, man. I'm keeping receipts to where if he's balling out on the field, I'm going to be calling out some of these major network stars right and left. And you know what? I hope one of them replies to me. We can actually have a conversation, because at this point, some people, it's just a little ridiculous. And like I was saying before, like, I take offense to that because I root for this team. We're heavily invested in it. Some of us spend thousands and thousands of dollars, with season tickets and stuff like that, tailgating, traveling. And so when we hear discouraging stuff like that about our franchise, especially our quarterback, who we think is going to ball out, we take offense to that. So I'm definitely taking names. I'm keeping receipts. And you can definitely expect me to be very vocal about this going forward, because if he's the player that we think he is, I mean, there's going to be people that are going to be saying different things to where we can catch them off guard and be like, hey, you know what? 2 months ago you were saying this. Why all of a sudden a change of heart? So
yeah, and anybody that knows you in the spaces knows that you're going to be very vocal about.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I can't wait. Like, it's going to be 49er Twitter is, I mean, not that 49er isn't toxic, like it's even going to be an eruption within the fan base just because of all the people that have said so many things about Trey Lance and doubting Trey Lance and that they should keep Jimmy and all the other stuff, which we're not going to get into. Like I'm not going to get started with that conversation, but
Yeah, that's going
it's
down a
just
road that
crazy.
yeah,
Yeah,
man.
we
I
don't
mean,
even want to get into that.
yeah, I mean, it's crazy, man. Like, and the thing is, I think we both believe that he's going to be a star in this league, and it's just a matter of time. He's just going to have to get his shot.
Mhm.
I think
Got to get reps.
he's got the right coach. He's got the team around him. I think we're gonna run the ball heavily this season. I think he's gonna get a lot of easy looks, and if he hits them, I think we're gonna be fine. If he doesn't, you know, that's gonna be a topic of another conversation at a later date. But I believe, and I think we believe, because we're a very knowledgeable fan base of what Kyle Shanahan is going to do for him. I think he's going to make the offense very, very simplistic. I think we're going to be running the football a lot. I think there's going to be, some easy throws that he's going to be asked to make. But we know he can hit the difficult ones. We know he can hit the ones over the
Mhm.
top. We know he can hit the rollouts left and right. We know he can hit a seam route to Kittle, to which for some reason Jimmy Garoppolo cannot hit that throw. So we've seen it before, and I think we're going to see it time and time again.
Yeah, for sure. And so with those national talking heads saying
Mhm.
so much about selling on Trey Lance and all the other stuff, is there anything that worries you about Trey Lance's game? Because we can talk about all the great things that we talk about with Trey Lance and all the
Yeah.
things that we're excited about. But is there anything about his game that worries you? And who are you going to blame if maybe he doesn't pan out like we think?
Man, that's a really good question. Um, I think there are a lot of things that I love about his game. I would say in terms of throwing the ball, I know sometimes he can be a little inaccurate. So like I was saying before, like to me, I don't care about his throwing motion. A lot of people pay attention to that mechanics, but to me, it's like if you get the ball on time, in stride, on the numbers, whatever it is where you need to place the ball, it doesn't matter how the ball gets there. I don't care if it's
Mhm.
wobbly, has a tight spiral. So that kind of stuff to me, it's just pure accuracy. Can you deliver
Yeah.
the ball on time, in stride? Let's say Ayuk is running a shallow cross. We've seen him hit Ayuk in between the numbers, and he takes it 30 more yards. We've seen, can he place the ball away from a defender on a deep crosser like he hit the Debo against the Texans? He can absolutely do that. Can he hit a seam route to where he's got to put the ball maybe over a defender and in front of a safety? We've seen he can do that. So to me, it's can he do that on a consistent basis? Because if he can, the 49ers are going to be deadly. So I would say the
Yeah.
number one thing is accuracy. Can he
Hmm.
be accurate consistently? I know he is accurate, but can he be accurate consistently? The second thing is how is he going to protect his body on not necessarily scrambles, because he's good at getting out of bounds and not taking hits when he scrambles. It's the design runs that I worry about a little bit.
Oh,
You kind of see him
yeah.
hesitate. You see him hesitate, and there were a couple plays against the Texans where you can see he hesitates a little bit. He doesn't go for the first down. He doesn't slide, and he doesn't get out of bounds. So while I will say his body type is a little bit thicker than a guy who Kyle Shanahan had before early in his coaching career, was
Hmm.
RG3. Trey
Yeah.
Lance is kind of built to take hits, but at the same time, you don't want your investment to be taking that kind of a beating. So I'd love to see him take care of his body on the field. That is something that I think that he needs to improve on. The scrambling, again, he's good at getting out of bounds, but the design run plays, he needs to get better at sliding and taking care of his body that way. So those are a couple things about his game that I would love to see a little improvement on. I think he's got tremendous command of the offense. I think he's got a good command of the huddle. I think he knows the playbook. So just two things: accuracy and taking care of his body. I think those are the two things that I really believe he can work on. And if he does those two things, I think he's going to be. Honestly, I think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback in the next 2 years. Like
Yeah.
I don't see
I agree.
anything else to see why he wouldn't be that.
Yeah, I agree, and I would say that the thing that I look for the same two things that you said that you're looking for. I really I kind of look at it like this. He does all the things that we wish Jimmy would have done, right? He's able to
Mm-hmm.
throw the deep ball. He's able to throw that fastball to get it over coverage and like through those tight windows. But what we need him to do is be able to throw those balls that Jimmy throws all the time. That he does do well. The things that Jimmy does do well, which is hit guys in stride over the middle, and we just don't want him to bear down on those receivers like Jimmy does. But at the same time, I think that he sees the whole field, but we still every now and then he needs to get used to hitting those short guys and taking a little bit off the ball, putting the touch on it, and not throwing the ball through his receiver. Like there was a couple of times I thought he was going to take guys' hands off. So that comes with experience. It comes with reps. I'm sure there was a lot of excitement that when he's throwing the ball, he's hyped up. And like you said, to your point about the designed runs, I don't think designed runs are a good idea for Trey because of just what you said. It's we don't want him taking hits. He has every capability to be a throwing quarterback. He has the smarts to do it. I know he picked up the playbook very quickly. All of his coaches raved about his smarts and how he's able to pick up the offense quickly. I just don't think that there's a need for it unless it's an absolute like a naked boot or something just to get in the end zone. Something but I don't want any the way that Baltimore uses Lamar Jackson. I don't want to see any of that.
No.
Because he's not as fast as Lamar Jackson. So, and I think that to your point, about what you said about how he played a little tentative in those earlier games with the design runs, it's because I think he recognized that the guys that he's playing against now are bigger, stronger, and faster than the guys that he played in college. It's not even
FCS,
close.
Yep.
So when he sees a guy catching up to him way quicker than anybody he's ever played against, of course it gave him pause. I think it gave him pause, and he was tentative. He was going to try and run. He can't run guys over like he used to in FCS. So it's a learning process. And I think he's gonna learn how to slide and all those things that you were talking about. I think that those were valuable lessons that he learned. Even the injury. I think that this kid is going to take even the injury as a learning process and just look at it as something to think about the next time he gets in those positions. Maybe just throwing the ball away. Maybe just as simple as throwing the ball away. We even hated Jimmy when Jimmy wouldn't throw the ball away. So it would take sacks. So it's like I said, it's all a learning process. But there's one part about what was I saying? Oh, so the other half of this question was, who are you going to blame if he doesn't pan out? And I'm going to go first. Is I'm 100% going to blame Kyle if Trey does not pan out.
Why
because I think this kid has all of the ability. I think he has all the smarts. I think that if he doesn't pan out, it's because Kyle is intent on using him in those design runs like we were talking about, and he ends up getting hurt. I think that's the only way I see this kid does not pan out. Because he doesn't even have a bunch of reps, but he gave you what he gave you in that Texans game and was learning on the fly. He made a mistake on one throw that he got the interception with. And honestly, if he had thrown it just a little bit farther, it wouldn't have been an interception. But he learned. They had that exact same throw later on in the game, and he hit it because he hit the right guy on time. And to your point about hitting guys on time, it's just a learning process. This kid he's learning everything on the fly, and I'm just really impressed with him. So I think if there is somebody to blame, it's Kyle. I think he has all the tools. I think that this kid is a moldable piece of clay, and it's up to Kyle to mold him into the quarterback that I think we all want to see.
I agree with you to an extent, but I'll push back a little bit. I think in terms of what you were saying about 100% being on Kyle, I think maybe you got to give it at least 50, in my opinion, 15 to 20% on Trey as well, because I'll start with Kyle. So you're absolutely right. I think Kyle has this talent that the 49ers haven't seen in a long time. His physical traits, his intangibles, his leadership. his physical ability, the way he can rip the ball in there, his arm talent, all these things. And the one thing that I was really kind of upset about, I feel like Kyle's a big like mechanics guy. And so if and a lot of reports saying that his mechanics aren't great. Now, to me, if you're constantly messing with your mechanics and you're constantly trying to get your throwing motion faster, you're constantly doing little things here and there, that can get in your head. And I think one of the strongest things about Trey Lance's game is his mental game. And my dad and I would talk about this a lot. When he, obviously I didn't get to watch Montana, but he got to watch Montana. He said the best thing about Montana wasn't his physical traits, it was what he had between the ears, the mental side of the game. And so when you're constantly messing with your throwing motion, or you're constantly trying to get new ideas that you're trying to perfect, you're never going to be able to capitalize and perfect those fundamentals that you already have to become an NFL quarterback. So in terms of, I don't think Kyle will ever mess up, his physical ability in terms of his arm talent. But if you're constantly giving him stuff to work on, that could also mess in your head, because you're thinking, man, if I'm sailing this ball high or I'm throwing it too low, you're constantly maneuvering your mechanics to where you're never just going to be able to throw the ball the way that you want. And so if they can kind of just let him go out and play and not have him worry about all that stuff, I think he'll be much better off, because he's not worrying about, oh my God, in a split second, am I throwing the ball correctly? It's more focusing on reading the coverage and just throwing the ball. Does that kind of make sense?
For sure. No, it totally makes sense. And you're probably right. Like, I was probably going a little bit overboard on Kyle.
No, but that's your opinion.
It's just I look at Kyle and I look at the way that he did RG3, and I look at the way that he started to do Trey in the Arizona game, and it made me angry. Honestly, it made me angry.
I didn't like it.
Like, and I was just like, what are we doing to this kid? Like, in my mind, Kyle has this thing about Kyle. Kyle has this ego, and it totally shows through in his play calling style. He does too much. Like, sometimes he just thinks that he's the smartest guy in the room, which he probably is. But sometimes simple is just better.
Yeah.
And you have to know when to bring the smarts out. And sometimes I just think that he does a little bit. He wanted to show off the shiny new toy. And but I agree with you.
Here's the other thing you got to think about. And we've heard Sean McVay say this, that he would actually get in Jared Goff's ear and tell him the read, right? I think Kyle Shanahan, like you said, is egotistical. He wants things done his way. Now, I don't know this for sure, but I can probably think that when Jimmy Garoppolo had just come to the team, I have a feeling that Kyle Shanahan would tell him where the correct read would be. And to me, I think Kyle has to take a step back. He has to call the play and trust his quarterback, to where if it's not done the exact way that he wants, but it's still a positive gain, or maybe Trey improvises or something like that, he's got to live with that. And I don't want him to have such a tight grip on Trey Lance to where Trey feels like he's being suffocated, to where if he doesn't execute the play right, he doesn't take exactly the perfect 3-step drop and hit a slant that's 8 yards over the middle, to where it's going to produce this amount of yak, to where he's going to put that pressure on himself to do that, to where he can just go out and play free, to where you see guys like Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen. These guys are almost never on script, right?
Ever.
And so my thing is, you have somebody that has these physical God-given gifts, to where you're going to suffocate him, to where you want the offense to go the way that you want. And I think that's something that if Kyle does that a little too much, I think could also ruin him. So I want to kind of go into the 20% where Trey Lance could potentially have the blame as well. Yes. As a player, obviously you want to listen to your coach, but at some points you got to be like, you know what, coach, like I got to just go out and play. Like just call the game and let me go do my thing. And if I need to improve stuff afterwards, like let's talk about it at practice. Let's talk about it when we're watching film. But at some point, he may have to push back if he's established himself a little bit and be like, you know what, Kyle, I need to go play. So to where he's going to let his natural gifts and abilities take over, to where he's not, like, again, being suffocated to what Kyle Shanahan is telling him. So I think Trey has a little bit of say in terms of wanting to go out and play the way he knows how to play the game, and have it be a balance to where Kyle's coaching him, but he's not messing with his mechanics too much. He's not messing with the mental side of the game, because those are things that Trey Lance is already strong at.
Yeah,
so
to your point, this is the thing. Do you think Kyle's going to get on him if he throws a 70-yard bomb like to Danny Gray, but he didn't hit the right guy that Kyle wanted him to hit? He's not going to care. He's not going to care. He's going to be like, "Hey, I'm happy that you saw that read." Like, and he's going to probably take credit for it being built into the play. Like, so here's like the thing. It's a catch-22, you know.
So do you remember against the Texans, right? So Lance hits that bomb to Debo, right, for a touchdown?
Yeah.
Fine, right? Okay, later in the game, later in the fourth quarter, I believe it's like maybe like a third and goal, where Trey Lance absolutely just completely misthrows a screen pass to Debo Samuel. Yeah. You see the next shot is you see Kyle Shanahan blowing up Trey. Okay. Yeah. So that's the thing, is like, you had this kid just make an unbelievable kill shot play to basically end the game. And then the next possession, you're going over and berating him for a pass, a 2-yard screen pass. Like, to me, that's the type of stuff that Kyle's got to just kind of back off on, because the game's over. You're winning the game. He's had an unbelievable performance in the second half, and you're getting on him about what?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, why are you cussing him out when he didn't even know he was the starter until probably Saturday night? He plays this unbelievable game, and you're getting on him about a screen pass that doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
I will say that even as a coach, you have to look at it like, and I mean, I'm not some huge coach. Like, I coach my kids little league and like that kind of stuff. But as a coach, even when they do things right, you have to find teaching moments. And I think that was more, and that's more of what that kind of was more than anything. It was just probably a teaching moment. Yeah, we're up. Hey, he probably was saying, "Hey, don't get complacent. This isn't time to be laughing and joking. Like, you need to be learning, soaking up everything that you can right now. Like, so I need you to be on point. Don't let up."
That's a great point.
So and I'm just telling you what I think it could have, that conversation could have been, because then he let him go, and then he went off and started talking to the other guys, and they were just kind of patting him, "Hey man, like, you're doing really well." So like it is what it is. I think Kyle's got to be the bad guy. Somebody's got to be the bad guy all the time. You'll learn that as a parent.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I don't think Kyle minds being the bad guy either. I think he kind of likes it.
No, I think he likes it.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, Pete, let's transition to the defensive side of the ball.
Okay.
And PFF voted 49ers the #1 front seven in the NFL. Do you agree? Like you're going to disagree. Is there anybody even close to us? And which player not named Bosa is going to have the most sacks on this D line?
I mean, I think any other fan base in the league would probably have us as the #1 ranked defensive line. I think we talked about this last time on Rohan's show. I think we go probably 9 or 10 deep, to where maybe even 12, to where you could have 3 starting front fours that would start on, maybe the back half of the 20th or worse NFL team. That's just how we are. We're going to be defensive line heavy. So what I think is really interesting, to answer your question about who may have the most amount of sacks outside of Nick Bosa, it really depends for me. I mean, a lot of people are going to say Drake Jackson. Some people may say Kerry Hyder. Some say Samson Ebukam. That's a whole different topic. I think Ebukam's money could be freed up to where we could potentially, make in-season moves, stuff like that, sign veteran players. But to me, if he establishes himself as a dominant player in training camp, I think Kemoko Toure could potentially have 8.5, 9 sacks. And the reason why I say that is he's a 4-3 end rusher that can put his hand in the dirt. He's very violent with his hands. He doesn't quite have the bend that Drake Jackson has, but he's very good at converting speed to power, which in Chris Kosarek's game, in his defensive scheme on the defensive line, you're playing the run to the quarterback. It's pinning your ears back. Is the running back coming through my hole? If not, I'm going to get the quarterback. So to me, I think Kemoko Turay, if he can step up in training camp, and if he's that guy, I think he's one of those guys. I think we signed him on a 1-year deal that he could just go out and ball out, maybe get 9.5, 10 sacks, and he's going to be getting a boatload of money somewhere else. Because I do think Drake Jackson, I think they don't mind playing rookies on the defensive line. We've seen that. But I think somebody with a little bit more NFL experience is going to be starting. And I think that guy could be Turay, could be Hyder. And it could be Jordan Willis. I mean, Jordan Willis is a very good pass rusher. He's just more of a speed guy. Amenahu. I mean, we're so deep on the other side that I don't know. But to me, I'm really excited about Kemoko Turay because he's very violent with his hands. He's fast. He can convert speed to power. And there's a reason why they signed him in free agency. So that's my pick.
Yeah, for sure. And really, he is what we wanted. He's what they wanted D Ford to be. Like that's the whole reason why they got D Ford. And we saw what happened when D Ford was healthy and he was able to play. It was a race to the quarterback every single down. Right. And even on when it just didn't matter. It didn't matter how good your offensive line was. They had just people all on 2019 team. They had somebody across the line. Our defensive line was just ridiculous. But last year, what's funny is that we were way better against the run than we were in 2019. And Kemoko Turay, I think, is going to really benefit on those third and long situations that really, I mean, were our bread and butter last season. And what we did struggle, our secondary did kind of struggle in those third and long situations, but our defensive line was getting to the quarterback like every single time. It was just we were getting penalty after penalty in the beginning. But yeah, I really liked the Turay signing, and I really thought that at the end of the day, he's going to keep Drake Jackson off the field in the beginning. I think that Drake Jackson is going to get his playing time, but I think he's going to be more of a factor the later part of the season, maybe depending on how good this defensive line is. Because like you said, I don't think that they really want to play the rookies unless they absolutely have to. The only reason why, what's his name, the safety, Hufanga got to play extended minutes and Ambry Thomas got to play extended minutes was because of injuries. They had to be on the field. And then Hufanga played well when he was out there. I mean, he wasn't great in coverage, but I mean, overall he played pretty well. And then same thing with Ambry Thomas. Ambry Thomas was out of necessity, and then he just happened to start playing well at the end of the season. But they would not have played those guys if they absolutely didn't have to.
Yeah. And let me ask you this question.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. So, what are your thoughts on maybe trying to figure out maybe different fronts on like second and third and long? What are your thoughts on maybe sliding Bosa inside to where you have Bosa and Armstead on the inside, then you have Drake Jackson and Kemoko Turay on the outside? Do you think that is something that could potentially be effective? Because Bosa,
you brought this up in Spaces, and I immediately thought of I immediately started trying it out in Madden, and I'm a Madden. I like playing when I get a chance, but I just wanted to see what it would look like, and it would work out. In my mind, it would work out really well in those situations where unless a team just busts you out 5 wide, but if they're trying to go through wide receiver set, I could totally see a 5-2, and they just first guy to the quarterback wins, because nobody is going to guard our defensive line one-on-one if it's a one-on-one matchup.
Yeah. So no, I'm talking about even just a front four where you slide Bosa inside. So you have Bosa and Armstead on the inside, and then you have Turay and Jackson on the outside. We could talk
Okay.
about the 5-2 because I personally would love to see one-on-one matchups across the board because
Yeah.
who's going to be able to block Armstead and Bosa one-on-one? Very few people can do that.
Yeah.
I think Toure can beat one-on-one matchups. I think Drake Jackson on the end has the physical skill sets to beat a left or a right tackle. Um, so and then you maybe put Kinlaw, over the center, or you put Kevin Givens over the center. You got Hassan Ridgeway. So I mean, there are a lot of things that you can do on the defensive line. But yeah, four down line, five down line, I think would be something to experiment with, and maybe
Yeah.
in the preseason to see whether if that's something that would work. But yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with you. If you can create one-on-one matchups across the board, somebody's going to win.
Hmm.
So
I mean, nobody's blocking Bosa one-on-one. Like
no,
that's not gonna happen.
no,
Like, but yeah, to Chris Polo show, Chris Polo mentioned that Kinlaw's gonna get 10 sacks to flex on Grant. And hey, you know what? If that's what it takes to get Kinlaw 10 sacks, I'm all about it. And I would sacrifice Grant in a minute. Like, sorry, Grant, but like, and I like Grant, but yeah, like it is what it is, and we're not gonna get into that whole thing. But it's I think Kinlaw has a chance to be a monster.
mm,
Uh, I really do. I've always thought that he had it from the moment they drafted him. I thought he had a chance to be a monster. It Injuries are his only weakness, and if he can just be next to Armstead, and then you've got Bosa on one side, and then let's say Toure or one of the other guys. It doesn't even matter who it is. Like
mm.
it's I mean, who's blocking that? Who's blocking that? I just don't see how any team is going to block that.
I I really hope Kinlaw has a Pro Bowl or close to a Pro Bowl type season because the physical gifts that man has to be that
Oh,
big. Yeah, I mean he's got height, weight, speed. Out of a
yep.
defensive tackle, it's height, weight, speed, and he could take on double teams. It's just the health, and I think the health and not having a super high motor is something. And we were questioning whether he'd be a 3-down player.
Mm-hmm.
We have yet to see that, but he could prove us all wrong. I think every single one of us wants Kinlaw to do well. I want Kinlaw to do well because if he does well,
Absolutely.
this defensive line's going to eat. So the thing is they had to the 49ers, and it's not a slight to him. Um, they had to get some depth on the interior because they just don't know if he
Yeah.
misses another season. At least now we're deep enough to where we could potentially replace him, and
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's something that they had to address. I mean, they had to
Yeah.
address that because
Ridgeway is going to be a key part of that. If he goes down, Ridgeway is going to have a majority of those snaps in my mind, and like
yep.
Ridgeway is going to be, and he's a solid player.
Mhm.
Like so, yeah. And then on those third downs, that's when the Amenahus and those Kerry Hiders can slide inside, and yeah, it's not going to be an issue after that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's I can't wait. Like there's just so many options that they have now with all this depth. It's gonna be a really good time. Um, who is there another team that you think is close to the 49ers in the front seven?
That's a good question. I think I think potentially healthy. I think potentially healthy. The Baltimore Ravens have a chance because they
Mm,
have they picked up, I believe, a defensive tackle, and then they drafted Ojabo. So they
yep.
have two pretty good pass rushers on the outside. Um, Man, that's a tough question. I mean, there's
They
so many
drafted
good
another
so many
they drafted
defensive lines.
another
I mean,
linebacker to go next to McQueen too. To
yeah,
next to Queen
yeah. I
too.
mean, you have the
Like
Chargers. I mean, their front four is scary. I mean, the Las Vegas Raiders, their front four is scary. I mean, the Buffalo Bills. I mean, they have. I mean, Russo, and they picked up Von Miller. I mean, there's so many defensive lines and front sevens. But I mean, other than the 49ers, I mean, I think we're clear cut number one. But
yeah.
yeah, I'd probably say the Chargers. I'd say the Las Vegas Raiders. and probably Baltimore Ravens. If I'm missing a team, let me. Oh, and
Yeah.
the Saints always have a good front seven as well.
Oh, that
So
was who I was going to go with, the Saints.
yeah.
Like I was probably going to go Saints first, and then my second one would have been the Chargers.
Mhm.
But the Ravens are right there. I think it's like it's close between them and the Chargers because I just think that they drafted so well. They drafted a lot of the guys that I liked in the draft, and
Oh yeah.
so I'm biased like a little bit. Like so it's but I thought that they had a really good draft, and I think that it's going to show this season, just what having that draft. Like, I mean, that's the thing, same thing that the Ravens do every single season. Like, they
Oh
just
yeah.
draft well. They draft well, and they keep their guys, and then they let some guys walk, and then they draft more guys, and
Mhm.
it's pretty crazy.
Well,
But
what's amazing what the Ravens did is if you think about their draft, right? I mean, so they picked up. I mean, it's not defensive line, but their defense in general. Kyle Hamilton was probably a top 5 player in the draft, overall player, right? They got him at 14 or 13. Then they picked Linderbaum, who's an offensive line. But then they went Ujabo, who, if he wasn't injured, was probably a mid first round talent. And then in the third round, they're like, oh, okay, Travis Jones, who's a Vita Vea type player, is sitting there in the
yeah,
third round, who on many people's big boards was like the number 30, 31st overall player. So
yeah,
not not only did they get Kyle Hamilton, who was the best safety, they got one of the best, if healthy, was probably going to be one of the top pass rushers taken. And then they backed it up with probably one of the top 3 defensive tackles taken in the draft.
yeah,
So what they did was, I mean, every pick they made, I was like, oh yeah, of course, that makes total
yeah.
sense. You know what I mean?
As opposed to our drafts, like usually we have to figure out what they're trying to do. But
Right.
but Kyle Hamilton, I feel like is going to be the defensive player of the year. But I did want to mention, uh, not in before I meant to say defensive rookie of the year, not defensive player of the year. Uh, Chris Polo said, "How about the Raiders? Chandler Jones and Max Crosby." To your point, like, yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we mentioned him, and like, I absolutely think that that is going to be a nasty front. Can Chandler Jones stay healthy? Is the question.
Hmm.
I don't know if he can. He's getting up there in the years. He was having injury issues the last couple of years, I believe, and so I mean, it'll be interesting to see. And the Raiders are a cursed team in my mind. So
Yeah. Well, and so the last team I want to mention, their front seven, which they may be sneaky good, would be Green Bay.
yes, they always have a solid defensive line.
Yeah.
Like it was always their linebackers that were questionable, but then they got Campbell, and he kind of shored up that spot. But it still didn't matter once they played us. Like
Mhm.
it's I mean that game came down to special teams. So, but
Did they
who's
did they pick Quay Walker? I'm trying to
they
remember.
did
They
they
picked so
did
they picked Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, who one's a
yeah
linebacker, one's a defensive tackle. So I mean,
yeah.
right there, I mean, those are 2 solid players that I think that could be very productive.
But they lost one of the Davis boys. Trying to
Oh,
remember
one of the
what his name
Smiths,
is. Z
Zadarius Smith.
Smith. Zadarius Smith. They
Okay.
lost. They lost him. So they had to replace him with something. And not that he's a defensive tackle, but they just had to get something on that defensive line. And I don't know who they have. Who they must believe in somebody.
Yeah. Now that I think about it, I don't remember if it's Zadarius Smith or Preston Smith was the guy they lost.
No, they lost Zadarius.
It
It
was
was
Zadarius.
Zadarius.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
because
yeah,
he
I
was
mean,
supposed
right
to
there,
go to the
we
Ravens. He was
yeah.
supposed to go
So
to the Ravens originally, and then he ended up going somewhere, or maybe I think he was supposed to go somewhere, and then he
that's right.
decided to not go there and go somewhere else. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we named off some solid squads. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if the 49ers, the Ravens, and the Saints are a 1, 2, 3 in terms of overall defense in some order. You could probably put us one, you could put the Ravens one, you could put the Saints one.
mhm,
Between those 3 teams, I think they're going to have the top 3 defense, and it's often driven by the front seven. So I think we named
absolutely,
a lot of great front sevens, but I think probably those 3, us, the Ravens, and the Saints, probably have the best front seven,
yeah,
top
for
3.
sure. So as we're wrapping up the show, your prediction: which team in the NFC West wins the division, and which team do you think maybe may just shock the world?
In our division, or specifically
Yeah,
in the NFC?
In our division, NFC West. NFC West.
Well,
Because I think,
I mean,
yeah,
you could say us for both, because a lot of people are predicting that, some people are predicting we do show out and we do win the division, but a lot of people don't have us winning the division. So we could win the division, and it could be surprising to people, if that makes sense.
Yep, for sure. And
but
yeah,
just using my head, who I think is going to win the division, I think the Rams are going to win the division. I think we are going to be a solid, number 5 seed in the, in a wild card spot. But again, if Trey Lance plays well, I could potentially see us winning 12, 13 games, and us winning the division. What do you think about that?
Yeah, so I look at it and I think that the 49ers have a really good chance of winning the division as long as Trey can stay healthy and they stay away from the design runs, like we were talking about earlier.
Yeah.
And my surprise team is, I think that the Rams are going to surprise everybody by not winning the division, and that the 49ers end up with more wins, and I think that the Rams might end up a wild card team. Just because I think that people are overlooking the losses that they had, and the people that they brought in, while good, did not shore up the people that they lost in my mind. And so I think that they're trusting in some people that they already had there that were already had injury issues. And I just think that they're possibly going to take a step back.
What do you think of the whole Aaron Donald? What do you think of the whole Aaron Donald situation? You think it's smoke, or you think he's actually contemplating retirement?
You know what? I saw that I saw that yesterday, and the first thought to my mind was, if he retires, that's it for them. That's it for them. They're not they don't even make the playoffs without him. They don't even make the playoffs without him. So it's not going to be. But I think that it's all posturing on his part. They're going to pay him. They'd be stupid not to.
Oh, I agree. I mean, if he was, I'm going to sign a 2-year deal worth 46, 48 million, and because that's what he deserves to be paid. And maybe if he can get some sort of like high injury guarantee to where he's got his ring, and if he doesn't get injured, I could be like, I'm going to hang it up, but at least I'm going to get 15 to 20 million guaranteed, regardless if I play another down. You know what I mean? I feel like if you structured something like that, he would be all for that, because that gives him, if he plays 2 years, he's going to get 40 of the $48 million guaranteed, and if he gets injured and wants to retire, he's going to get 20 million from the team anyway.
Yeah. Did you see the basketball? He was at the basketball game the other day, and just all the ice. What
was Chris's comment? I wasn't able to see it.
Oh, sorry about that. He said it's great posturing by Aaron Donald. Either way, he's not worried. Danny Brunskill is going to dominate him anyway, which is true. I don't know what that's all about, and I'm not pretending. But I even if Brunskill doesn't start for us, they're probably going to start him just for the Rams game.
I think it's scheme, man. I mean, every time we play him, we're running to the opposite side. We're doubling him. I will say there are one-on-one matchups that Brunskill does win against him, which is really surprising. But I think it's because I think Brunskill has a harder time against bigger defensive tackles that are stronger than him. Aaron Donald is one of the strongest players in the NFL, but I think because they're both shorter and Brunskill is kind of lower to the ground, I think he can use some of his leverage of getting low against Aaron Donald, to where other players, they just overpower him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. Chris just said he's just got that dog in him. That's all it is. So, but yeah, I just think there's something about this. I thought that they were lucky to get to the Super Bowl, to win a Super Bowl. I thought a lot of their playoffs last season there was a lot of luck involved, and I think that we with Jimmy Garoppolo, I feel like we were one or two throws away from beating them. So I don't think that I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed. I think that it was a really weird Super Bowl, and I thought it was a really weird playoffs. So I'm just not impressed. And I think that if Trey is even what we saw in the Texans game, then I think that it's a wrap. It's a wrap. If all he has to do is stay healthy.
I agree. I think honestly, I think there's a lot of luck with the Rams, and I think there's a decent amount of luck with us as well, because I know people are going to say, oh, special teams showed up and they were due to have a good game, but I mean, I don't think we blocked a punt all year, returned it for a touchdown, and the
second
ball
to last.
Jordan Willis used just like Maradona in the World Cup, put the hand of God out there and he blocked it, and then the ball went straight to where Hufanga was, and there was no Green Bay Packer around to pick it up, and there's nobody around him, and he got a clean scoop into the end zone. Like,
yeah,
come on, like that's
football, bro. That's football. Like that's
football,
the beauty of the NFL football. That's the beauty of the NFL playoffs, is that it's not played on paper. Like you can have the best team on paper, and you don't know what's going to happen from week to week. So it's that's why I love the game. But hey, bro, thank you so much for coming on today. I had a ball talking 49er football, and thought it was a really good show. Of course, our thanks to Polo for coming in and guiding us through the last half of the show. And then but I really appreciate all the people that watched today. Appreciate all your comments, all the feedback that you guys have been giving me, and I'm really excited to get farther into this off season, farther into training camp. But why don't you tell them one more time where they can find you on your socials before we get out of here?
Absolutely. So I'm at SF9er49 on Twitter. I'm very active in Twitter Spaces. Again, I don't really do a lot of things on. I know, Chris. I know I need to make a channel. Having a newborn and working, and commuting is tough. Maybe I'll try to find the time eventually. But yeah, so that's where you can find me. And I want to just thank Peter for inviting me on the show. Everybody that's watching, like and subscribe. Peter's very active on Twitter Spaces. He's always in there spitting facts to everybody. So go ahead and like and subscribe to his channel and follow him on Twitter and help out his page.
And that is the most important thing. Subscribe to the channel, please. Subscribe. I get more followers every day, which I appreciate more than anything. But I've got I'm really working on growing this YouTube channel. So I appreciate any subscribers that I can get. But I want everybody to know that the audio version of this podcast will go on, be on Anchor and all the major places, anywhere where you can get your podcast content, it'll be on there. So feel free to check it out there if you don't have time to watch it on YouTube. But like I said, thanks Kevin for coming on. Thank you guys all for watching, and I will see you guys next week. But we always say going out, go Niners. Appreciate you all.
See ya.